I don't know when we'll be up here. I didn't win a state title. I'm sorry about that, Jack. I was runner-up. Same guy beat me all the time. I lost to one guy, but he beat me like a damn drum all the time I wrestled. The guy went on to be a national champion. At least that's what I tell people. That's what somebody told. Here we go. First of all, I'd like to say a little something about the. It's kind of neat being inducted this year with all these people that I know. First of all, my brother. I know him pretty well. We learned to wrestle together because we come from a family of 12 kids. So we wrestled a lot for that last pork chop. So that's how wrestling started in our family. And me being older, somebody asked me on the paper, could I beat Vic? I said, hell yeah. I mean, I was 5 years older, and you know, I was hungrier, so I did. But it was nice. Also, Vic and I slept in the same bed for, I don't know, it seemed like 1,000 years because we had 12 kids. So how many, you can't have your own bedroom with 12 kids. So I would sleep on like this side, he'd face this way, yes, that way, I know he'd face that way. So I can only sleep on the bed, I sleep on, if I have a queen bed, I only sleep on 3 feet or 2 feet, whatever it is, 12 inches, whatever it is, 1 foot. Because that's what I'm used to. So no matter what I have, that's what I just curl up on one side, and that's because of Vic, because he was a big guy and he took most of the bed, so Vic took the bed. But, and Ross Thomas and I go way back. When I was coaching at the air base, of course, everybody expected the air base to lose. So everybody, if you said anything to anybody, you were like, "What are you doing? Just shut the hell up and take this loss and get out of here," like that. So Smyrna, if you ever went to Smyrna, and Ron knows this, they would put 40 parents right behind the scores table, so no coach would come to the scores table. So I'd come up. Ed was ref in one match, and I came up to the scores table, and Ross Thomas's dad and about 40 or 50 of those Smyrna guys. I'm sure they've been down to Smyrna Tavern Road. You know, if you came up to the table, they would just wear you out. And they would say something, and Ed was doing one match at Jambier, and I said, Ed, every time I come to the table, these guys are cussing me out. He said, hey, don't come to the table. I learned that early at Smyrna, do not go up to the table. And then, of course, I didn't know who those guys were. I just thought they were just angry old men. And then Ross came to work at Polytech, and he told me one of them was his dad. His dad was always abusing me. I said, thanks a lot, I'm glad I know that. And Ross and I started working at Polytech, so we ref together and we worked there, so it was really nice having Ross here at Polytech. So him being inducted was really awesome, because I had to hear a lot about his officiating. Of course, you know about Ross, the reason he's not doing the Olympics is because he was honest, and somebody, a big-time official in the Nationals, made a bad call, and Ross overruled him and said, I think you made a mistake there. Of course, that was on national TV. And they never worked again, but other than that, he did a fine job, but he got it right. He got it right. And Cap, they said that he didn't have many memorabilia, but he does have a lot of cowboy boots, a lot of big old buckles. If you ever want to ask that question, just ask him about it. And of course, Harry and I worked together one year at Caesarati when I started. It was nice that they told me I had to take a Rigby because I was at the air base, and they just they would make sure, hey, look, if you come to Caesarati, you better bring a Rigby with you. So me and Harry started working there. And in our very first match, is against Roy and that great Milford team he had. And that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny there because all the Rigby's had kind of mixed allegiances up there. So all the years of coaching the Rigby's were really exciting. But I swear I won't do too many stories. There's one Rigby story I got to tell you. Harry told me that there's been a Rigby at Caesarati for 40 years or something like that. 40 years. It's almost as many as Evie's had been at Smyrna. He's probably been there longer. But so there's been an Rigby on the wrestling team at Caesarati for 40-some years. So I had about 10 or 12 of them. But I've had one of the Rigby's I had, Mike Rigby, was wrestling for. I think it may have been in Smyrna. I'm not sure because I don't want anybody to get angry. I think it may have been in Smyrna. And there's a ruckus, and Johnny would always listen to me, and I'd be, whatever I'm saying, I'd say, there's a ruckus. I said, what's going on, man? Look back there, and there's somebody, Mike Rigby leaves the bench, he's in the stands. And I said, what's going on? He said, somebody hit my mother, so he's going in the stands. So I don't know what happened. So I run over there, we're dragging people out of the stands, and I turn around, and there's like 600 angry Smyrna fans, and they can get angry up there. I mean, they get real angry up there, and they're all angry. And I look in the gym, and this is really a true story. I look in the gym, and I see 5 Rigby's standing in the middle of the thing, look like the Earps. And I turned to New and I said, "About even." 600, about even. young. And, Reese wrestled for him. Reese Jr. wrestled when his dad didn't make a match. And I said, how come, where's your dad? He said, well, my dad's got a contest. You know, they're all like karate people, right? They're all, even the women are karate people. They're all sensei women. Woman sensei is, whatever they are. The whole family are all karate people. So, well, where's your dad? He said, well, he's at a karate tournament. I said, where, Wilmington? Rehoboth? He said, no, Russia. He's a Russian. I said, what's the tournament? Breaking blocks? He said, no, hands as weapons. I said, and he won like the hands as weapons in Russia. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to mess with the Rigby boys. If you ever seen them, they're all masons, right? And you know how you lay, bricks are easy, right? Like that. The Rigby's on watch, they did my chimney. I think Harry did my chimney, and they come over and they do block, cinder block. They pound it. They go, you have to go like this. They just palm one, put her up there and slap her. Her hands are all like bigger than her bodies. Shake hands with them, you know what I mean. So it was nice having those Rigby's all those years, and now of course it's nice that the Rigby boys are in the, and Harry I'm sure will take that Hall of Fame with all the Rigby names, because I've been hearing about Rigby's for as long as I can remember, because Reese beat my best buddy Wayne Penn, and he didn't win either, Jack. Mike Drake didn't win because Dan Reese beat him in the state finals there. So I've been hearing about Rigby for a long time, and I'm really nice to work with them. I think I got everybody, didn't I? But anyway, so back at the Air Base, I really appreciate all that. Like New said, sometimes I may grade on somebody, but I always been intense. It's the way all I know. So Jack and I have had a lot of great matches at William Penn. Of course, I'm from William Penn. And our fans were just like Smyrna, exactly like. We had a woman, I was wrestling a defending state champion, and before the match, this woman took her shoe off, was beating the guy I was wrestling, said, Leonard's going to kick your ass. I'm going to kick your ass. Come on. Mrs. Rugstall was her name. She was banned for life. I know how bad fans can be, but the Air Base was great going there, and we had about 8 guys on the program. They hadn't won in about 8 or 9 years. So we just beat the bushes, got everybody out, and after a while we started getting good, and people started coming out. I had some great people there, like Ronnie Lee and Purcell and Joe Bolin, and we had some great teams there. And we were lucky enough to beat Caesar Rodney. I mean, they beat us, we say, all right, we beat Caesar Rodney once, so they beat our ass most of the time, but once, okay, we beat them once, okay. But it was worth a lot that time. Then when I got a chance to go to Caesar Rodney and follow Charlie Wilt and Jerry Buckworth and Pete Basile, I mean, they set a great standard. So it was really hard to go there, knowing how people were going to, if they're going to take to me or not. So again, the first match we wrestled Roy, and we wrestled real well, so had a good year. And then the next year we won the title, so everything was okay. But as long as you win the title, you're okay, Caesar. No one tied the Tiger Knights, because they have high standards, and of course all those great wrestlers before them. So it was really awesome being there all those years, and such great kids I had there. Joe Schutzer was a JV coach there, and he won like 1,000 in a row. And then we went up to Wayne Penn, and actually Wayne Penn had won like 1,001 in a row, and New was our JV coach, and he stopped that streak up there. It was really nice, and then we thought we were good, and then Jack beat us on the varsity. So, it was a great rivalry all along. So it was super being at Caesar Rodney. Johnny was a great assistant coach. He had to listen to me all the time, and it took him about 3 years to know when I was rhetorical. Because I'd say stuff I don't need to answer. I'd say, what the hell's he doing? John the first 2 years would answer me. I said, John, I don't need an answer. Just rhetorical. Just put it out there. Finally, he realized, don't answer. Don't answer. That's the way it worked out there at Caesar Rodney. And great parents, great administrators like Dr. Postwaite and Dr. Robson, who's here tonight, and Herb Childers, who, God rest his soul, who was a great principal, who actually gave me a job, hired me in football and wrestling. I don't know how that happened, but he did. So really nice being there and wrestling for those people. And great parents, kids like Lance Miner and Mark Gross is here, and those guys want to do great things. Smith boys, Randy and Jeff. And there's so many, I don't want to miss anybody, but great kids. Eric Buxton wrestled for us now and wrestled for us there. And of course, he's a big politician now, probably be governor one time, so make sure you shake his hand before you leave. He will be a governor. He's he's a moderate Republican. There's not many of them left, so shake his hand before he's on the kill. Of course, and then as far as getting into fishing, that's pretty funny. because Kevin can tell you, we had a couple stories with the officiating. One, they changed the rule because of me. The Milford Invitational, they had sessions, and if you got thrown out of one session, you were back in the next session. So we're in the last match. You guys know how it is, the last match when nobody's in the gym. There's like one guy, and you got your heavyweight there, and he's wrestling for 5th place or something, and everybody's going but you and the refs, and everybody's fired up. They've been there all day. So Kevin and Eddie, Fast Eddie, were doing the match. Fast Eddie Marathon. So Kevin and Eddie, and this is God and truth. They go in this match, and Eddie, there's a flurry at the edge of the match, and Eddie goes, 2, and Kevin goes, nothing. Same time, exactly the same time. So I got up and I said, you know what? Why don't you guys take this goddamn show on the road? Right? So he goes, boom, you're out of it. You're out of the tournament. You're out of this session. So I said, wait a minute. There's one match left, and I'm back tomorrow, and I'm out of there. I said, you know what? As well as I'm throwing out, I got one thing to say. I've been saving the thing up for 10 years. So I said, dip. I said, yeah, the fat, the boop, the beep, the boop. So I said about 9 things I've been saving up for 10 years, and I was only thrown out for like one half a match. So the next year, if you were thrown out of one session, you're out the whole time. So he changed the rule. That was a good reason to change it. So then I get in a wrestling. They get me. My brother gets me into officiating. And in the first match I'm officiating, Phil Schulte, it's against Sussex Central. And Phil Schulte, I guess he's winning, he's killing the guy, but he wants to win every match. He's won like 1,000 in a row, young Colonel Sanders did it. But I tell you how old I am. Phil was wrestling at Central when I first started coaching, so I know I'm really old. But anyway, so Phil is the coach, and he calls me to the table. So for the first match, I go over there, and Phil calls me to the table and says, Tommy, I know you freaking hate me, but you're killing me. You're killing me. I said, Phil, I don't hate you. I might be killing you, but I don't hate you, man. That was my first time with Phil. So after that, we were pretty good. But anyway, so I move up the ranks of officiating, and I get I finally get William Penn and St. Mark's, 1 and 2 at St. Mark's, and I'm going to do the match. So the first match is, whatever it was, 100, 101. And I'm thinking I'm doing a good job. I'm all pretty in my uniform out there. And further, there's a flurry on the edge of the mat, and I make a call. I come back, there's like 1,000 people in the stands, and I hear, hey, Tommy, did you drive 50 miles of being incompetent? He didn't call me Leonard. He didn't call me Leonard. It's like somebody from my neighborhood knew me. He called me by my first name. So, man, right then I knew what those guys had heard from me all those years. And they told me that was my penance. I had to officiate all that stuff. And I took a lot of abuse because every time, after that, Kevin got me back because Mumph, who was one of my assistants, Mumph had started the program with us at Polytech. Mumph was the signer. Whoever was the signer, he always gave me Don Parsley's matches, every time. So I would always have those because Don and I had a few run-ins as a coach. And they always made me have his matches, and that was pretty funny stuff. So that's why I got back in the good graces of the officials because they always made me work on Don. But anyway, so the officiating was awesome with those guys. Get to work with my brother, work the Beast, things like that. It was really neat to do that, see how those guys live, and that's really hard stuff, as you officials know. So I'm really happy to be up here and go on with these guys. The kids, most of my kids have turned out to be cops or I don't know what Lance is, businessman, and some of them may have gone astray, but hopefully that the coaching staff, we had some great assistants working with me. I hope we made a dent in their lives somehow. Hopefully some of the things we said, we tried it, either Air Base or Polytech or Cesar Rodney, we did a team thing. It was all team. If you had to go out there and your job was not to get pinned, then you didn't get pinned. Because if you got pinned, we abused you. The next day, no, you can't do it. You can't get pinned. I always said it's like getting beat twice. You can't get beat twice. Don't give it up. That's before they used to get the tech things back in the day. And if if you had to pin somebody, I know I had a couple run-ins with people. I'd say, hey, you got to let him up and go for a pin. They're like trying to hold on. Somebody trying to hold on for a 2-1 win. I said, no, we know what we need. We got to have the pin here. You can't hold on. They couldn't figure it out. I said, no, you must go for the pin. Let him up. Go for a pin. So sometimes it didn't work, but basically the kids knew it was team. We didn't care about what your record was. We wanted to make sure that the Cesar Rodney record or the Air Base record was great at the end. So it's been a great ride with wrestling. I had a chance to wrestle for Otis Chapman and Paul Billy at Delaware, and they're like twins that were separated at birth because they're the same people. I don't know how that happened, that I would have Otis, and you can't call him Otis, but we call him Otis all the time behind his back. Otis was, I'll tell you, you think that you have rough coaches. Otis would not let you eat. I mean, you could not eat because he said the hungry animal hunts better. So if you had eaten in a week, he said you were ready. I saw Otis strangle somebody who was trying to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich after weigh-in. And Otis went out and he was trying to swallow it, and Otis grabbed him by the throat. He wouldn't even let him swallow it. He wouldn't even let him swallow it. Couldn't get it down. So we would have to post centuries and make sure, hey, where's Otis? Times are changing. But it's been a long ride and a good ride, and it's really nice to be going on the hall with this class. Appreciate it. Everybody who's ever worked with me, coaching, thank you very much. All the people I've coached, thank you very much. Officials, Caesar Rodney and the Air Base who hired me, thank you very much. You stayed with me. And also my lovely wife. I will not forget my lovely wife, Barbara Jean, who's been through a lot. Spaghetti, we always did a spaghetti dinner before the season started because it was the last time they're going to eat. So she would make the spaghetti and all the kids. So Grossi still loves her. I think Grossi still loves her. He still gives her a big hug every time he sees her. But it's been a great ride in wrestling, and I hope there's many more. I see everybody in here, or if we've been around somewhere together, and I appreciate it. And thank you very much, and yes, keep up the good work.
When I found out I was selected for the Hall of Fame, the first thing I kind of had to do was figure out who was going to do the job that Kevin just did. And there were about 3 or 4 candidates. One was Keith Mumford. I knew he would just beat me up, so I couldn't have him. Then I started talking to Josh Holloway and Dennis Creighton, our presidents from the past 10 or 15 years in the DWOA. And they both said, Kevin Charles, I don't know how many of you know this, but there are 50 state directors in the country. And every year they elect one of those state athletic directors to be the president. And Kevin this year is the president. So I certainly feel honored by it. Definitely, before I forget, I want to thank my family for showing up tonight, as well as supporting me over the years. It was a lot of travel, as Kevin said. A lot of times I was flying 2 times in a weekend. The Big Ten schedule was a Friday, Sunday schedule. So you might be in Iowa City on Friday night, fly out somewhere else on Saturday, work in Minnesota on Sunday, and pump back to work on Sunday night. So it's a pretty crazy schedule, not home a lot. I got a great background in the sport. I look over and it's just like kind of being on the mat because all 3 of my Smyrna coaches are sitting right together. I started out with Mr. Eby and Mr. Lloyd, and I'm old enough where Mike Doolin, Hall of Famer, he was still an assistant at the time when I was wrestling. He hadn't even become head coach yet at that time. So got a great background in the sport. Went on to school, and I figured when I was done, I had to figure out a way to stay in the sport, and that turned out to be officiating. And it was a great gig, 30 years of it. Really kept me in the sport. And there's no sport that I can think of that you're more involved in officiating as wrestling. You're right in the thick of things. Everybody's looking at you, and it's only one referee. You can't look at the other guy and say, that's a key business. It's great to go in with this class of inductees. I mean, I worked with all of them. I worked with Coach Leonard. Coach Leonard's theory was, and Kevin gave a big spiel about officiating, but Coach Leonard said, I want perfection on day 1 and constant improvement. So I kind of changed Kevin's gig a little bit there. I had great opportunity in the sport. When Vic Leonard started the Beast, that was kind of the deal because we couldn't get out of Delaware as officials. If we wanted to go to Pennsylvania or Maryland or some referee, they would go, where are you from? Delaware. Nah, we'll get somebody else. And once the Beast got going, we got a little instant credibility. We started working with the best guys in the country, and that gave us a lot of opportunity. We got to start traveling around and doing a lot of stuff. I received a lot of awards over my career, and Donna admonished me a little bit for not bringing down more plaques and everything. But to me, the awards weren't as important. What I hoped to do was get more opportunity for our officials to start traveling around, through networking as we discussed. However, one goal that I always had was to be the first guy from Delaware to do the D1 Nationals. And that ended up coming to pass in 2007. And unfortunately, a couple of my biggest fans that were pushing me to do that, my dad passed away in '03, and Zane Robinson passed away in '06. So unfortunately, they never got to see that. And that was one of the things that hit me in my career that I really would have liked to have happen, is those two guys being around. Mr. Leonard said when he officiated at Smyrna, he always got a tough time from the table. Well, early in my career, I was doing a Smyrna match, and I was working with one of my guys that I teach with now, and he was my assistant. And I went up to him and said, "Hey, you're a young guy. Why don't you walk the edge with me and work with me, my assistant?" He said, "Okay." So we worked the match, and these three dudes behind the scorer's table were wearing me out. And finally, after the match was over, he goes, "Hey, man, this is crazy. I can't do this." He says, "Why didn't you throw those guys out?" I said, "Well, the dude in the middle is my old man. I got the whole week." But as I said, the biggest thing was to get opportunity. We got a bunch of guys here tonight. We got Eric Buxton, we got Keith Mumford, Josh Holloway, Dennis Creighton. We were able to get those guys all over the country, and it gave us immediate credibility as officials. If you hear about Delaware officiating now, it's pretty well respected. And I think Ed John Bay will tell you, back in the old days, it was pretty tough to get out of Delaware. So we got to go everywhere. We've had people work the Disney duels, high school nationals, all over the country, which probably I'm much more proud of than anything else I did. It's been a great career. Right now I'm assigning the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, Southern Conference, and CAA Conference. So I have 17 schools that I assign on the college side. And I'm still kind of involved in it, even though I'm off the mat. And I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for thinking I was worthy. And it's a great night. Appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, for his kind words. And most of them are true, I guess. I'm honored and humbled to be selected to be in the Hall of Fame. I've come through the footsteps of many giants of our sport. In my junior high career, I had Larry Casella as my 7th grade coach, who's also in the Hall of Fame. Joe Deardorff, my 9th grade coach, also in the Hall of Fame. Howdy Duncan for football, and as you know, Howdy, he was a rough man, and he gave me a lot of life skills that I have today. And of course, the legendary Otis Chapman, as we can all attest, was one hell of a coach and one hell of a guy. I'm sure there was no one like Otis Chapman. He was someone who could strike fear into anyone just by his silence and his gritting teeth. Joe, you realize that. If it got silent in the wrestling room and you heard clenching teeth and cracking teeth, you knew somebody was in trouble. So my senior year, we were defending Blue End Conference champs, and we were picked to win again my senior year, my junior year, and we had Otis Chapman was demonstrating their move, and all of a sudden one of our wrestlers, Jeff Foster, one of our 38-pounder, started talking as Otis Chapman was demonstrating. And of course, the silence came over everybody, and the teeth started cracking, and we all knew someone was in trouble. And for some unknown reason, when Chapman yelled at Jeff started talking back to him. That's when we all started separating from Jeff. We knew the wrath of Otis was coming down on him. Well, needless to say, he was thrown off the team, and we thought our dreams of another championship were out the window. But that didn't happen. We went undefeated again and won the championship. But the thing is, that was Otis Chapman's last year, my senior year. He retired, and Jeff was a junior. And he came back his senior year and won a state championship. And it took jewels, I guess you call them, Jack, for a coach to throw off a guy who was that good, knowing we had just enough guys to win a championship. But Otis Chapman did not care about the team. He was setting the example that Jack was talking about. And we didn't think it was very good, but we went on to win anyhow, which was life lesson that we learned from that. As many of you know, I officiated for 18 years with DWA and PIAA. In all those years, I have to say, one of the worst experiences I ever had in my career came at the hands of my brother, Father John. His last year as coaching, and I asked the assigners, I said, yeah, I'd like to do Headlamp Conference, never done that before. And so they obliged, and I went down to Headlamp Conference, and I thought, oh, that's going to be pretty neat. So it just so happened I was on mat 1, we're supposed to be rotating the whole time, mat to mat. And for some reason, I got stuck on mat 1 for 5 straight matches. And I want to ask you guys later if that was on purpose or not, which I think it was. But just so happened 4 out of 5 were with Tom. And I'll tell you what, that was the worst tongue lashing I ever took in my life as an official. It was so bad that Harry Rigby came up in the air and said, oh, don't worry about him. Everything's going to be all right. He was apologizing for Tom. Now, I know Tom wanted me to throw him out of the tournament. I wasn't obliged. But I do want to ask you guys, now we're here many years later, did you do that on purpose? Did you, Kevin?
That's a rhetorical question, I say.
Or Dennis. I remember Dennis was there too, kind of chuckling down the yellow mat because he knew it was coming. But again, that was one of the worst days of my life on the mat. But the good thing is, the next 10 years... Remember that, Tom? Yes, he does. Yeah, what you're out of here. Too late. What was it you said? Ross knows what he said. What did he say?
I said, if you can't be fair, disqualify yourself.
Exactly. And I appreciated that offer. But I stayed and we finished the tournament.
I was there. I was on your side.
Thank you very much, man. See, he wasn't me. But again, it's sad that my brother was my worst experience on the mat. But anyhow, we got over it. We're not sleeping together anymore, but... but we're still brothers. 1 of 12. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my family, my lovely wife Lainey, putting up my obsession, as she calls it, over the years. The many days I had to spend away at organizational meetings in the early years at DWA, and many trips I took to recruit teams throughout the country. And mostly each Christmas season, around the Beast time, when I asked Lainey, hey, can you take care of the hospitality room for the Beast for the first 5 or 6 years? So every year, right around Christmas time, she'd be cooking 3 turkeys, 5 roast beefs, and many, many side dishes. And the greatest challenge to that was when Ed stopped over and started eating it all. Now, when Ed doesn't come in and say, hey, let me try a little piece of that, he started ripping the ham apart. Looked like a caveman. Finally, we say, man, we got to get some more ham. But we appreciate that, Ed, but stopping in like that. That was a fun time. But again, my family, they sacrificed a lot for me and for my career here in wrestling, and I really appreciate that. As the late Ed Murphy wrote in his Beast article, what I did was a labor of love. It just felt right and necessary at the time. When we used to travel the country and our kids in Delaware got very little respect. This was before the Beast. So it came to me, well, you know what, our kids are better than that. So I wanted to prove it. So the idea I had, or the vision, was to have a regional tournament. Small regional tournament, getting the best from the 4 surrounding states in the Mid-Atlantic area, and see how we competed against them. So I knew we were better than they were saying. So the Mid-Atlantic Classic was born. The whole concept was brought up at a DWA meeting early in the 90s, and of course we were so small at the time that we couldn't really entertain the thought of doing it with the numbers we had. So later on, as our numbers grew in the DWA, Wrestling Officials Association, and I became president, we gave it a shot. And we added the scholarship fund to that, made it even more attractive. And finally, it took off under the direction of Matt Holloway and became what it is today. the beast to the east. It did become a beast after the first 2 years, and once again, it was overwhelming for the DWA. So I approached Lou Sneed, and most of you know Lou Sneed. And he ran the, I call it Newcastle County Wrestling Club, but northern Delaware, I guess. And he ran that club for about 100 years. And asked if he would be interested in forming an alliance with the wrestling groups across the state. After several cigarettes and a few calls later, he seemed very enthusiastic about the idea, and the Delaware Wrestling Alliance was born. It has grown in size and stature by leaps and bounds over the years, and becoming, by other states, recognized by the Coach Association. All other states use us as a model. Secretary Director Mike Moyer called us one of the most organized and hardest working groups in the nation. As a matter of fact, they were so impressed that they formed an alliance with the DWA to co-sponsor the NWCA DWA National Duels, previously held at Battle Creek. They also rewarded our small state with hosting the All-Star match, as Jack talked about. And once again, it was without a wrestling program at the University of Delaware that made it unusual, because it was the first time ever in the history of the event it was held at a facility without a wrestling program. So that speaks volumes for our state and our organization. But the whole thing about that was trying to show the University of Delaware that we could have a viable program there after they dropped it in '91. But unfortunately, during that event, the AD was sitting in the stands, Baker Johnson, and I approached him, with the capacity crowd and so much enthusiasm. And I went up and said, imagine this. Imagine your UD wrestling team down here in front of this crowd. And he just smirked. And to top it off, Jack Charles, the former coach at Drexel of the CAA, was 2 seats behind him. And he hollered down and said, Vic, can we have our CAA tournament here this year? The wrestling tournament? And of course, Becker got up and left after that. But it was like embarrassing to him that we could have such good things here at the University of Delaware. And of all things left in my life to do, that is want to get a wrestling college program back here in the state of Delaware. And I'm going to do that. That's going to be the last thing I do. Sorry, Gary. That'll be the last thing I do before I'm satisfied. And Jack, it may be failure, but I'll have to go for it, man. I have to go for it. Through the wear and tear of my body and sacrifice made by my family, I can truly say it was a labor of love. And all I can hope is that I left the sport a better place than when I started. The DWA is in great hands with people carrying the torch, like Donald Silvestri. He's a great torch bearer. And Bobby Shaw, Tommy Abbott, Steve Lex, Tom Basso, Ross Thomas, Frankie Ampitori, Ronnie V, my brother, my friend and brother, Ed Young, along with all the dedicated volunteers at DWA. And thanks to Zane Robson, who left us too soon, who was instrumental in making sure we were connected to the right people. I'm sure he and Senator Vaughn are up in heaven now looking down with smiles on their face. And I'd be remiss if I missed John Brown-Cascio. Where's John? Bron. If it wasn't for Bron, we wouldn't have Inductees. We wouldn't have DWA. He was the nuts and bolts of the whole organization. And I love you, man. Without John, we wouldn't have it. Let's give John a hand. John's on here. One last person thank who took the DWA to greater heights was Mr. Jack Newman. This man was our conscience over the years and a great negotiator. And thanks to Jack for all the contributions to the DWA. Thank you again, and thanks to Jack Holloway for always doing a great job emceeing. And Jack, I will apologize one last time for my actions in your 8th grade or 9th grade class. There, I finally did it in public. I apologize for that class, Jack. So thank you all for the great honor, and hopefully we'll get that program here in Delaware in the next step. Thank you. There we go.
I thought this was staged on me. This is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do, stand up here and talk about myself. I have no problem for 20 years talking about the wrestlers that we had, or the 27 years that I taught. But to do this, it's totally out of character. We weren't taught that way. We were brought up, I hear Jack and everybody talk about Otis Chapman, not letting you eat, and pulling the food out of your mouth and how rough he was. Try living with that. I mean, we had the greatest father in the world, but we live with that every day. I remember my brothers and our whole family, Reese, Roy, and Morgan. Reese, Roy, and I only lost one match other than state tournaments. Unfortunately, Reese and Roy lost the same night. It was like having Otis Chapman and all the other mean people in one room at the same time. It was incredible. But, and you're right, Jack, we couldn't coach today. Because I remember when we went to Caesar Rodney in I don't even know what year it was, but it was a packed house, and I had a wrestler wrestling. He happened to be wrestling one of my nephews, not these, it was a Glandon. And in the middle of the match, unbeknownst to me, he stands up and flips the bird to the fans. And I didn't see it. My assistant coach saw it. Everybody's booing him. Gets a team point deducted. He comes off the mat, and I grab him and smack him. So luckily his brother was in the stand. His brother comes down, gets him out, takes him outside. So the match is over, and this lady from Caesar Rodney makes a beeline for me, and I'm talking to this person's mother. And this person hands a business card to the mother and says, "I work for a lawyer, I'll see you there Monday morning." And the mother said, "My son deserved it." So you're right, today is entirely different. But I'd like to start by thanking everybody that made this possible. Certainly Ross, Vic, Tommy, it is definitely a great honor. I couldn't be any more happier or proud to go home with a group of guys than this. My family, my brothers Reese, Roy, Morgan, my sister Frida, my two daughters, Michelle and Amy, and again, my wife of 39 years, who I wouldn't be here if it had not been for her. You're right, Jack. And, she's the backbone of our wrestling program. But, again, I'm very proud of everything that has happened. When I was called and got this word from Mr. Wilt, I looked and I thought, why me? I wasn't the best wrestler in my family. I wasn't even the best coach in my family. I've got a brother, Roy, who coached for 4 years at Milford and wins 2 state titles. Reese, Roy, Morgan win state titles. Morgan's an All-American. And I stand before you to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I thought, why? But then I looked around and I started evaluating. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm comparing myself to the best there is. I mean, how do you get any better than that? How do you get a family any better than that? And you were right, Tom, for 41 years out of 48 years there's been a wrestler, a Rigby wrestler on the Caesar Rodney wrestling team. And there's more to come because I have a grandson. So, we're all very proud of that. So, 3 of us have been honored enough to be State Coach of the Year. Now that Reese has been, that's no pressure on Dan at Milford, but but again, when I look back on it, it's just been an unbelievable journey for us. In 1980. First of all, in 1976, I get a call from Joe Deerdorf. And he says, I was laying bricks at the time, and he says, Harry said, if you want to coach, you have to teach. And there's a new school opening up in Newcastle County, in Hodson Tech. If you get a job there, then you can coach in the state. So luckily I applied, and lucky for me, got the job. In 1980, a wrestling position came available at Caesar Rodney. Alma mater, I thought, great. So I applied for the head job. And I get a call from the principal, Harry, you didn't get the job. Well, I'm furious. Not that I have a temper, but I can't imagine anybody else would be more qualified than me. Well, there was. And I became his assistant. And it's ironic that I started my career with Tom Leonard because I only lasted 1 year with him. That was incredible. But again, I know the officials, had to think, wow, I've got two of them on the same sideline at the same time. And then in 1981, the job at Dover High School came available, and Danny Roberts called me and said, we want you to come to Dover High School. Well, 81, I was only 11 years out of high school, still gung-ho about Caesar Rodney, still am. And I thought, how in the world can I go to Dover? That's terrible. I mean, they're terrible. They'll never win. So I did. I applied, got the job, and many, many nights going down New Burton Road, I was scratching my head thinking, what in the world did I do? I left the program at Caesar Rodney where we were 14-0 on the JV. The varsity was heading to win state championships, and I go to Dover. Well, fortunately for me, in 81, my first year, Dover only had 2 state champions the entire career at Dover High School. Luckily for me, I had a wrestler named Aaron Hall, who became a state champion my first year. So I thought, wow, that's hope. And then we went on, and it took us 5 years to beat Caesar Rodney. And I remember the first time I walked into the gym at Caesar Rodney to wrestle Caesar Rodney, and the whole Rigby clan is there, everybody. And that was kind of tough because I know blood is thicker than water, but, they were still pulling for Caesar Rodney. And we left there very humbled. We got pummeled. And then it took us 5 years to beat Caesar Rodney. And as Dave was telling me, I thought it was 87. Dave was telling me in 86 when we beat them, we never lost after that, which I'm very, very proud of. Some of the moments that stand out were just, we taught our students, or our wrestlers, exactly what we were taught. Never back down. We were taught that as a family. Our father instilled that in us. Never back down from anyone or any challenge. So that's what we did. And that's what the wrestlers at Dover did. Now I know that, I can't mention all of them because there were a lot of wrestlers. The proof is over here. What they did about 2 months ago, prior when I first got the word, the team and my daughter gave me a party that was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't even cry at funerals. But I can tell you, I had some tears in my eyes then to see what they had done and what they had thought. And it was touching, no doubt about it. But, we went on, we beat Caesar Rodney in 85, but the matches that I remember the most, and all of us do as coaches, Jack and I were talking about it earlier, Mr. Eby and I were talking about it, but I remember in 86, I think it was 86 or 87, we're wrestling in the conference championship, and Danny Chai is wrestling Moultrie, and I think it was David Moultrie. And he is shellacked Danny Chai. I mean, he tech fought him, he embarrassed him. Took him down and let him up, and took him down and let him up. And I thought, oh, wow. The next week, we had 1 week to prepare for the state tournament. So that Monday, Danny came in and said, Coach, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. So I said, all we need is 2 takedowns. So Danny and I, before practice and after practice. Long and short of it, Danny wrestled Moultrie in the state finals and won. The very next week. Those moments you think of. I remember wrestling Jack, and I don't remember what year it was because I can never remember. I don't have Alzheimer's, but the time just slips by you. But I remember William Penn coming to Caesar Rodney. William Penn was ranked number 1, William Penn was ranked number 1. We were ranked number 3, and everybody thought, wow, what a match this is going to be. It was a packed house on a Saturday night, and Jason Money said, Coach, I want to wrestle Creighton. Can you move me up? I said, why? Why? We've got a tough match here. So I weighed him in and thought, well, if we need him at that time, we'll use him. Well, it didn't turn out as we planned. We got shellacked. So when it got up to 167, Jason said, Coach, I want to wrestle. What are we going to do? I said, hey, we've got to give this crowd their money's worth. And we did. And Jason and Creighton wrestled in one of the best matches in high school you'll ever see. They hugged at the end of the match, and it was unbelievable. And Jason won. But again, those are the things that stand out in our minds. Danny Chai, again, his senior year, he was state champ his junior year. His senior year, he says to me, Coach, I want to wrestle 119. He weighed 110. And I said, what do you mean you want to wrestle 119? What, you're crazy. Why? Because I want to wrestle Arcangelo. He beat me as a sophomore. Arcangelo was a state champion. So what does he do? I move him up to 119. They meet in the state finals, and he wins. But again, it was an unbelievable match. So the thought of knowing that we don't back down sunk in was absolutely incredible to me. And everyone that coached with me, all the great coaches that I had, all the wrestlers that wrestled for me, for us, I just can't thank enough. The managers, Adam or Joel Boyd that I talked about a little while ago. He coached at Smyrna, and I remember we went down to Milford. Ann and I went to Milford and watched the Milford Invitation, and Joel was sitting there with a bunch of the Smyrna wrestlers. And he told them the story of me smacking him. And he said, I deserve that. Today, he is superintendent of a school district in New Mexico. And there was an article in the paper down there, and that was in the article. So again, you don't know how you touch people's lives, but they've certainly touched mine. And I know you've heard so many stories about the Rigby family. Most all of them are true. But that's how we were brought up. Again, we were brought up by parents that just said, you do not quit. You do not give up. And I always told everyone that I ever came in touch with, that were down and out, I said, if you need a friend, go to a wrestling match. Because this is living proof right here of what wrestling does to people. We all played all sports. We played football, baseball, so forth, but nothing brings you together like this. So I close in saying to all of you, I'm very honored and pleased that finally, and I accept this award for all the Rigbys, because finally the Rigby name is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.